I know that God, if you've called me to being a mom, being a wife, and CEO, there's a way. There's a way that we can do this with systems, with technology, with people, to where we can do all of it well. It may look a bit different. And my dad didn't know. He didn't know all the stuff, like all the books and all that. He was so busy just building his business and working through it and doing all the things that he didn't know all of that. And so as I was exposed to a lot of best practice and how do other family businesses go through generation 1 to G2, and how do you scale, and what processes do we need? What technology do we need? Oh my gosh, we don't have to do that. It doesn't have to be that hard.
Welcome to the How Leaders Think podcast, a show that transforms you by renewing your mind and giving you new ways to think. I'm your host, Kenny Lange, and with me today is the Megan Tarrant. She is the Chief Executive Officer and owner of Clements Fluids, a family-founded WBENC certified company in the energy sector. Born the same year the company was established because her parents didn't have enough to do during that time, Megan has grown alongside the business, rising from finance and accounting roles to lead in the cultural and strategic transformation side of things. It has been grounded in faith, purpose, and core values. Since becoming CEO in 2019, she has restructured the organization's leadership, positioned it for long-term success, and created a focus on relationships, integrity, commitment, and excellence. Welcome to the show, Megan.
Thank you so much. That was beautiful.
I'd like to make my dad proud because I got a degree in speech communication, and I'm not quite sure what else to do with it.
He would say, well done.
Yes, he would if he actually listened to my podcast. But that's a different story for another day.
Father's Day.
Yeah, coming up on Father's Day, yes. I'm excited to have this conversation, and I think we're going to have a lot of fun now that I also know you're working genius. So we may make the world explode, and that'll be okay. But tell me today, Megan, what is on your mind?
Oh, man. 5,000 things. I'm always thinking about a lot. And so I think right now what I'm thinking about is how to find the right people. Making key hires are just so important, can make or break departments, can make or break teams. And as much as you feel like you do all the due diligence, you use all the tools, you do all the things, at the end of the day, you really feel like a batting average percentage is really get you in the Hall of Fame, and it's really frustrating. So right now what's on my mind is just trying to position our hiring and our people for success, and what can we do to better the experience, to ensure success, not just for us, but also for the person in advance. Because it's just, I feel like sometimes you take one step forward and 3 steps back, and hiring is one of those things you put so much into. So you really want to make sure you get it as right as possible.
Absolutely. And just to give folks a little bit of context, like what is your current head count? Like how many people are working there now?
We have about 100 employees.
I hear this a lot from other leaders that they're like, well, one, where are all the good workers? I was like, they probably already have jobs. I heard a recruiter say once that the people you want aren't the ones who are applying for positions. They already, somebody sought after them, and now you got to compete for them. But I know that turnover can cost an insane amount of money.
It's expensive.
And it impacts different industries differently. But I'm curious, what has helped y'all with retention of employees? Like getting them in the door is one thing, but like you said, how do we make that experience good on the front end? How do we make sure that we're sticky? Like people don't just like, hey, y'all had a great hiring and sales process, but by God, this is not what I signed up for.
We put a lot into our training programs. We're not done yet, but we've hired a lot of salespeople over the last couple of years. And what we recognize is the learning curve is pretty steep, and not just in what we do. And there's all this tribal knowledge in people's heads that it takes years for them to have all those experiences. How do you put that in a training to where you can shorten the learning curve, you can give them the confidence, you can give them the tools that really helps expedite their success, but also spending time on who we are as a company. And we go through a session called the legacy session, and I talk through where we've come from. We talk about our purpose. We talk about our values. We even spend time like going through strength finders. We use culture index, and we talk about who you were created to be. And we have an onboarding group going on right now. And in the room itself, we have these big stickies with their name on it. And all throughout the week, we ask them to identify, okay, what are your superpowers? Like, I know we can talk about gifts and all of that, but like truly uniquely to you, what perspective unique do you have? How do you see the world? How does your experience translate into this? Who you are as a person? And throughout the week, they put sticky notes on their own, and we put sticky notes on their page. And at the end of the onboarding session, we send them home with something that has like, just remember, this is who God created you to be, and live in this. So we've done a lot to really make the process stickier with our values and our purpose. That we're not just going through it with the CEO, but we're taking it several steps further and through the department and really trying to position them for success. So we don't have it all figured out, and we haven't been able to do that with all of our teams. But this year we've been really focused on doing that for our plant techs. The plant techs are our lifeblood. They are who make our products. Without them, we wouldn't have anything to sell. And so really being able to spend the time to develop, okay, what does this look like? How do we get out to Midland? How do we get out to all of our clients and meet them where they're at and pour into them all these things? They also want to know how our products and services are used. We've learned that that's not just a sales thing, but how much more they feel like they're connected to the overall mission and vision when they can see, these products that we sell are really important to our customers. And here's why. If without that, they wouldn't be able to have the products. I think just really focusing on investing in our people and investing time and resources and tools.
I love that y'all are setting so much context around who they are, their identity, what their work means to the company. Obviously, in any onboarding, you would assume you're like, well, your job does X, and here's the dependencies on you, and here's who holds you accountable, and here's who you may be flowing your work onto when you're done. But broadening that into how do our clients, how do our customers, how do they use it, and what does it mean to them? And when you do X at a certain level or standard of excellence, it makes this kind of impact. And when you don't, it makes this kind of impact, which I think is, I love it because it's sort of that transfer of ownership thinking. Absolutely. These are things that owners and CEOs, I think, naturally come by, or at least are forced into, because you're looking, like you said, 5,000 things. But employees normally aren't doing that or aren't thinking that way. And also, I don't think are shown how to. They're not given that insight. And I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about how has that worked out for y'all in just having more transparency maybe around the business and how it operates and what different things mean. Because some people may go, I know how to do this work. I just want to do good work and go home. Like, why am I learning about this, that, and the other thing? Like, I just know the thing. So can you talk a little bit about how that's gone, instituting that sort of process? Is that something that predates you? Or is that something that has been just a key part of your leadership and taking over the company?
I think my dad, when he started the business, I think that he was close to everything, right? Like, you can do that when it's just you and a handful of people. You can show them, because guess what? You're bringing them along with you everywhere you go, right? Like, we get a job, you're coming with me. I'm going, you're going. You get to see it firsthand. And I think just over the years, as we've grown and as we've scaled, we've lost that. As I went on my journey and taking over as CEO, I recognized that my gifts were different than my dad's. I didn't have all of the experience that he did in the field, but I did have gifts I have a vision. And I truly, my number one strength on Strength Finders is belief. And the more I leaned into that, the more I understood that that's my superpower, right? Like, I get to define this for the organization and not just put it on paper to be on the website, but get it integrated into everything that we do. And come to find out, people really love that. And not just, am I good at that? But also it attracts people and it helps people see, oh, wow, I never thought about that. Or I've never even thought I had gifts. Or But we've put a lot of systems and processes in place that help us not just have this onboarding experience in your first 30 days, but we do what we call a huddle every week, and we generate content for the huddle, and it's a script, and it gives either it's a learning topic. This year, our theme is stewardship. We talk about stewardship and sustainability, and so everything we talk about goes back to stewardship and sustainability. It's also a way for us to provide transparency into our goals for the year and how we're doing with those goals. And then we're able to highlight people living out our values. So we have what team impact nominations, and we have a little competition, healthy competition. We have TVs at every yard, and so everyone sees when someone's nominated, and then we have a graph and see who's wedding for the month, and just a great way to try to make your values come to life for people to look for those opportunities to celebrate each other. So I think that has helped us not just have a great onboarding process, but be able to sustain it throughout the year and make sure that we're all focusing on the same things and providing, like I said, transparency. Like every week we go through and we say revenue on track, off track. We go through every plant, revenue off track, on track. We go through margins on track, off track. And so we try to be really transparent. So everyone knows where we're at. Everyone knows where we're going. And I think that's helpful.
Yeah. Again, just more context and connecting what someone does day in and day out, how that impacts the company instead of it feeling like this dissociated entity. Like, well, if I wasn't here, nothing would happen, or what I do doesn't really matter, but really showing that. I do love the healthy competition, because even hearing that, I already feel I'm like, man, I want to win. I probably need some more areas of competition in my life, or maybe I need less because I need to chill out, but I'll leave that
it's
to
a gift. Competition's a gift.
Yes and amen. And that's really what I want to talk about. If I'm drifting into the stereotype land, and I might be, you're in the energy sector, you're in a blue collar field, and it's heavily dominated by males and male leadership. And one of the things that I reached out to you about was the fact that we share an affinity for the Enneagram. We're both 8s, which means we've probably singed a few eyebrows in our history. But it's well known that if you're an 8, which, whether you're active controller, challenger, whatever term you want to use for it, as a woman, one, you get perceived differently than if you were a man exhibiting the same traits. That's just a fact of culture. I'm not saying it's positive. And then for you to also be the CEO, to step into a male-dominated field, and then also for it to be a family takeover, like you have several layers into that I probably could have pointed to and said, that's going to be the tripping point for Megan or for the company to not take off, to not grow, to not scale, because you're talking about, hey, we have huddles and we talk about core values, and you've probably got these guys that are like, their hands are dirty and there's stuff on their face, and they're like, what? Core values? Like, you want me to do what? Just give me a torch or something and let me go cut something down.
Yeah.
Can you talk about how those things that it sounds like you really took things that could have been, I'm not going to say weaknesses, but tripping points, and it sounds like you've really leveraged them into strengths.
Yeah. So my CFO, she says it well. She says Clements Fluids isn't for everyone. And I think that we have led with values first from day one in our interview processes, that hopefully we catch those people that aren't interested in that. If that is refreshing to them and that's exciting and energizing, then they make it to the next step of the interview process. And yes, they do still have to be able to do their job well and have to have good references and all the things, competencies. But I think it is important to understand where people are at with their values. Otherwise, it is going to be like, can you just stop talking and let me go blend mud? And then that's what you're for it. You're never going to be able to motivate them. I'm not going to be able to do it for them. So I think just really giving yourself permission to create an environment that you feel like you should create for your business, and allowing that to to be limiting, I think is really important. Clements isn't for everyone, and that's okay. Look, but the more we allow it a one size fits all or one size fits most, the less people we're going to attract. And the people that we have people living from all over that are coming to work at Clements Fluids because of our values. But if I water those down, then, I'm not going to have the ability to attract. So I'm not sure I answered your question with regard to the Enneagram 8. Other than I am a little bit stubborn. I thankfully I have the opportunity to create this and build on top of the legacy that my parents had started. So I'm very thankful for that. But did I answer your question?
I think so. I think some follow-up is bubbled up in my noggin. So I love what you said about it. Are we attracting people? I think magnets attract and repel. And I think great vision, culture, values. I teach this with my clients when we're setting core values and building a roadmap and doing things. If they are distinctly yours, they should attract your kind of people and repel not that they're bad people, they're just not the right fit for you. And that's okay. And so it sounds like you've really taken on that perspective and impressed that on other people that, we're not for everybody, but the people we're for, it's a really good fit, right? Absolutely. We're not just like in the middle, which I describe as like people who drive and they're going to get in the turn lane. And they sort of like put just one half of their vehicle in the turn lane and the other half is still in the other lane. And maybe this is just me, but I'm losing my mind because I was like, just pick a lane. It's not what you decide, it's that you decide. It is a favorite saying of mine. Now, one thing, and maybe this is where some more of the eightness comes into play, but also taking over a company that you weren't the founder of, even if you were founded at the same time. But I had my coach's dad, I got to meet him a couple months ago, and I was like, hey, my name's Kenny. He's like, oh yeah. He goes, I'm the founder of Benj Miller. And I was like, that is a phenomenal introduction, and I'm stealing it. But I could easily see, even if you are strong-willed and have your own vision, but taking over something, there's already an established culture. There's already an established way of doing things. There's been an established leader who is the founder, who typically carries a lot of influence, good, bad, or ugly. How did you handle, or how did you and your parents handle, hey, love and appreciate you, honor what you did, but I'm going to lead a little different? Was that like a day one thing for you that you just said, you know what, I really do have a vision for the way I want to lead this? Or did you come in saying, okay, I do admire these things, I want to keep these going, and it was maybe a process of discovery of what's the Megan way that I'm going to lead? What got us here won't get us there, and you finding your own voice as CEO, because it would be really easy for you to just lather, rinse, repeat what your dad had done.
Yeah, great question. I think my dad is a true entrepreneur, and he did everything for a long time. And I think he, for the first 10 years of Chase and I working here, didn't understand that other people didn't also want to do everything. What I learned and what I appreciated and admired about my parents was I saw that the sacrifices that they made with time, energy, and effort from our family was, we couldn't go on a vacation without my dad having to come home the majority of the time, because there would be a job that called in and he had to go. But again, I have so many memories of him at every sporting event I ever played in. So he was very, very present. I don't need to sound like he wasn't, but he worked for our family, and he worked really hard. And I think as we grew, I saw that wasn't scalable. And my parents, by the grace of God, are they still married? Because it was hard. It was very stressful. We grew up in a really high stress environment because the business was so stressful. And I see, as Chase and I work together, like, as much as you try to not take stress home, it just does. And you can't stop that. And as I explored how can I be a wife? How can I be a mom? And how can I also be a CEO and really work towards the vision that I felt like God had placed on my heart? It was to have the right systems, the right processes that we could rinse and repeat. For example, when we didn't have the luxury of saying, hey, let's have a vision day and figure out what is our next expansion. Like, how our business grew was all of the rigs moved from East Texas, Louisiana down to South Texas. And we either had to figure out how to be a South Texas company or close our doors in some of the areas that we were in.
Wow.
And so it wasn't like, how do we rinse and repeat this stuff? Like, we just had to figure it out. And that meant going there. And then when they moved south, it was like a couple of years later, they all moved west. And we had to figure out how to build a plant in West Texas and hire people in West Texas and be about part of the culture. And we didn't have systems and processes, and we didn't have anything. It was more just trapped in people's heads, which meant Chase had to spend months and months there. And so I just kept thinking, like, how can we do all of this well? I know that, God, if you've called me to being a mom, being a wife, and CEO, there's a way. There's a way that we can do this with systems, with technology, with people, to where we can do all of it well. Because I don't think it's one or the other. And I think that's what I've had to get really clear about, is like, we can do all of it well. We can do all of it well. It may look a bit different. And my dad didn't know. He didn't know all the stuff, like all the books and all that. He didn't need it. I was so busy just building his business and working through it and doing all the things that he didn't know all of that. And so as I was exposed to a lot of best practice and how do other family businesses go through generation one, G1 to G2, and how do you scale, and what processes do we need? What technology do we need? Oh my gosh, we don't have to do that. It doesn't have to be that hard. Like, we can actually do this. So I think that that's really what drove that. And I think that at the end of the day, my parents and Chase and I are very aligned with what we want. My parents loved us so very much. They didn't know how else to do it. They didn't know that they couldn't afford to hire more people, right? They were literally in business building mode. They didn't have a budget. They were just like literally just in the thick of it. And our values are aligned. It's just when you get to a certain point in business, you have to have the level of scalability. Otherwise, you're going to go backwards. And we experienced that. We've been there. We've been to where we grew really fast and we had really high revenue and a ton of people. And then all of a sudden it was like margins were falling and business was failing. And we had to COVID gave us the opportunity to scale back and say, okay, how do we build something that is sustainable and scalable? And what does that look like? And that was really my vision. I think, I saw that it was possible because I had been exposed to other things and I was really hungry to learn from other people's mistakes. And probably if there's another superpower, I feel like I'm not afraid to ask for help, and I'm not afraid to say, I don't know the answer, but I could find somebody who does. And I think that's really helped me surround myself with the right people that can help me bridge the gap.
I want to add just a quick note for the listener. When Megan mentions Chase, it's not just some random dude. That is her husband. He heads up your sales and revenue generation or department, or maybe that's changed.
Yep. He has been in every position except for finance. He keeps saying he wants to join the finance team. It's pretty funny. But no, he keeps asking our CFO, when are you going to hire me? When are you going to hire me? I've been really good at finance. But we both had different backgrounds. Like, he started in sales and I started in accounting. And so I worked my way to CFO. He worked his way to president. But he was really in the field. He was in our operations and sales. And ultimately, he's the best team player and utility player that you could ask for. He can do any aspect of the business. But I'll tell you, I think that he has a passion for coaching. And when we got married, I convinced him to work in our family business. And he was planning to be a coach. And I promised him that he could coach our kids. And so, holding up my end of the deal, we have kids who ran all the sports. And so he coaches like 6 sports teams a year, and he loves it. But he still is a part of the business. But today he serves on our strategic advisory board and owner. So he doesn't own a function. Now I bring him in all the time for things I need his help on. I also need my husband. Having a direct reporting relationship isn't good for us, for either of us. And so it allows us to really to be who we're supposed to be at home too, like in the house. So,
which is what I was going to ask, because when I met you both about like 2.5 years ago or something now, I think he was still VP of sales, I think, at that moment. Because I remember we were talking about goals and he was like, revenue here. And I was like, okay, I know you're the sales guy. He's like, yes. But bringing up how that translates back home, like if you're working and again, floating in the land of stereotypes, we are in the South, so God bless us. Bless your heart. Got to work in one of those. It is less typical to have your wife as your CEO and then go home. And obviously, you brought it up a couple of times and happen to know this about you. We have a shared faith, which also states that, the husband's the head of the household and you're mutually submitted to one another. And those dynamics can get really blurry because it's just like, I'm one person and you can only compartmentalize so much. And I'm curious because it just seems like you, and I guess maybe this is part of your eightness, but you love threading the needle of like where things could get really messy, like being the daughter who takes over the family business and maybe is doing things a little differently. And then being the wife who's also the CEO and technically boss when we're in this context. What has helped you thread that so successfully? Because obviously like we're friends outside of here and I see you and Chase with your kids and y'all are just having a blast. And I don't think y'all are without issues. Nobody's perfect, but it just seems y'all figured out a way to make it work really well for y'all. So I'm curious if you could share a little bit of what you've learned and what's helped you there. Cause there's tons of other people who are trying to thread that needle and it's harder to do that than most other situations.
We haven't always done it well. So we've learned a lot through pain and just uncomfortableness and what's not working. But, originally I was going to stay home with our kids. And that was because that's what I thought we should do. Get irritated at Chase because he didn't have the vision that I had. And I'm like, and so a lot of learning went into giving ourselves permission to really live in our strengths. So Chase is a 9. And I didn't know how to appreciate that in the beginning because I didn't really understand it. Because I see it as different than me. And when we both did executive coaching and we did the Strength Finders and we did Enneagram. And I think through that whole process, it helped me fall more in love with Chase and see him as God had created him and truly seeing myself as God had created me. And at the end of the day, when I lead Clements Fluids all day and I get to come home and be second fiddle, and I don't mean to sound like that's bad. I truly believe it's a gift. It's a gift for me. It's a gift to have my husband who's the rock at home. And when on the weekend, we shift gears. So I'm like all day during the day, run the company, but then on the weekend, he's in charge. Like he's the coach. He tells me, people ask me like, what time do y'all play Saturday? I don't know. I just show up. Chase has all the stuff like that.
I'm here, I'm cheering. I brought snacks, orange slices, all that. Yeah.
I don't do anything. I literally I'm like the worst coach's wife ever, but that's what everybody understands. There's always a mom up there that volunteers to be the coach's assistant or the manager of the team, because it's not me, it's not my gifting. But at the same time, it's something he loves. Like he loves that and I love what I do. And it also, just from a faith perspective, like I prayed for a long time for Chase to step up to be the leader of our household. And it was really impossible for us to be in a good place spiritually with me trying to make him somebody he wasn't at work. Like it was so taxing on him to do the things that I was wanting him to do because I thought that's what he should do. And for me, I had so much left in the tank that I was like, I was being the leader of the household because I really should have been leading the company. And so I feel like we've found a really good balance. And I do believe that I need to submit to him and truly, just as he is to treat me like the bride of Christ, right? Like I believe that it works for us and it's good for me. And we've learned a lot. So we don't have it all figured out. And not saying I don't like creep up and somewhat take over sometimes, but it's not a healthy Megan. Like it's not a healthy 8. It's unhealthy 8. And we can start recognizing that and see it as kind of a warning sign and figure out what's going on to kind of have a reset and allow us to get back to what we know is best. So,
yeah. But it's funny. My wife is a 9. So I get that dynamic a lot. So you described a lot of my experience pre really understanding the Enneagram a little more than a decade ago. is I kept trying to push my wife. It's like, no, you got to be out front and do all this stuff. And like, look at all these other, like these couples, and they're like doing stuff together, and they're forced to be reckoned with. And my wife is, don't get me wrong, it's just not the same way I am. I think this could apply to any 8-9 couple, but I jokingly refer to us as an unstoppable force meeting an immovable object, because 9s are stubborn. They don't want to, I'm peaceful. I'm chilled out until I'm not, and something really upsets, or it seems like it's an injustice or something like that. It just isn't right. And then
You're exactly right.
And then that's when I go and I run, because I was like, if my wife powers up, I was like, Lord, help me and the rest of us. Pray for our kids. I was like, you really want to speak that way to her? She's been in more fights than I have. And she's never lost either. But I love hearing that, because it can be difficult, and describing being at home, like you weren't burning off all the energy that was natural to you. And when you understood that, then you're like, oh, running a multi-million dollar company takes all the energy that is good, like a great workout is.
Yes.
To where now I don't have that excess energy, because that excess energy ends up coming out as anger. And I think that happens to anybody. Actually, there's a quote on Instagram I just shared, and it talked about so much antagonism between people, at least professionally, is like unused or untapped potential and ambition, because they're not fully utilizing it. So now they've got all this energy that has nowhere to go, and it just comes out every which way but the way it's supposed to.
Yeah.
That's how you end up singeing someone's eyebrows.
Yes, and I think we've all done it, but we know it's powerful, right? We know that's harmful, and when directed in the wrong direction, it can be really detrimental. And Chase will even tell you, like, when I stayed at home, I created problems to solve. Like, I know I'm a problem solver, not about myself, but like, I was making the kids and him like problems to solve. And nobody wants to be Megan's problem to solve. Sometimes Chase will say, Megan, I just need you to listen. I don't need you to solve my problem. I'm like, I know. Okay, thank you. I can listen. Thank you.
You know how good I am at solving problems?
But don't you need the problem solved?
Yeah.
You just solve your problem. Do you have a solution? Because if you don't, I do.
Yeah. If you don't have a vision for your life, I'm happy to give you one. I have some thoughts.
Yeah.
And in leadership or in coaching or something else, that can be a real problem, especially if you're a really strong visionary. But I forgot what I was listening to. It's a good frequent reminder that bubbles back up at least once a year for me, which is you can't want somebody else's success more than they want it for themselves. You end up steamrolling them, which is, again, we all have our work to do to be in a healthy place. But it sounds like you and Chase individually, and to whatever degree your parents as well, to really embrace like and now of course they've gotten to see the whole art. They're like, we know Megan, we tried to give her some advice, and she was like, nope, I already got this, thanks for raising me. And that was probably like when you were 8 and you're like, I got it from here.
People think I'm crazy, but like when I was little, this is funny, I have to tell the story. So when I was little, probably at the age of 5, we'd be in a hotel, and they'd say, Megan, I need you to call and get some towels. And I remember being like, why can't you do that? You're the adult. But they made me do stuff like that when I was little. We need 5 towels. And the other side is like thinking about, what? This 5-year-old's calling? But, and then when we moved to my neighborhood, when I was in 3rd grade, they told me to go door to door and introduce myself and ask if anyone had any kids that I could play with. And so 3rd grade, I'm going door to door asking if there are kids. So my parents, they instilled this. Maybe it's a monster, but funny thing is I really made a lot of adult friends, and older people would invite me in for cookies and tea, but the kids thought I was weird.
Yeah. No, man, that resonates. I've never gotten along with my age group or my grade or anything, but much older people, I was like, they're like, oh, how cute. You're like a little tiny adult person. And I was like, sure. Or like when I was in Sunday school way back when, I was thinking it was 7th grade, I don't know what word I used, but I read a lot of Calvin and Hobbes and they used big words and my mom would explain them to me. But I used some word and this adult dude, it was a friend of mine's dad, was like, why don't you just talk regular? And I said, why can't you understand a 7th grader? Like, so that was, anyways, yeah, probably have some funny stories on that. Maybe I'll do an Enneagram 8 panel and we'll just all share hilarious stories. But I hear a theme throughout all the different stories and pieces that a lot of the work was on self-awareness and honoring not just one, how God made you, because that could also be upsetting. You're like, oh my gosh, like this is so frustrating. I wish I wasn't so driven. I wish I wasn't like seeing the stuff so clearly, because like people think, oh, I wish I was a visionary and I did all this. I was like, in the wrong circumstances and inside the wrong noggin, it's a burden. Like it really is. And people are like, oh, you're whining because you're No, like it really is frustrating. Like everybody has their own thing to bear, but it sounds like you, Chase, your family, like your journey has been a lot of how can we discover how God wired us? And number one, honor that for ourselves. And in doing so, you've been able to honor, embrace, and even improve situations by honoring how other people are wired and see the beauty in that. And when you do that, not only do you get harmony, like you don't have unnecessary conflict, like you said, just creating problems to solve, but you also get this like higher level of performance and results in your life, both personally and professionally.
Yeah, I agree. Is that a question?
Probably at some point. I should have done an inflection at the end. But
I
think that's a tough road to walk because, like the great philosopher Michael Jackson said, I got to start with the man in the mirror.
Yeah.
Or woman in your case.
It's good. Yeah, I think for me, I recognized early on that I was a lot like my dad. And my dad is an extremely strong personality and brilliant. And what gifts he has that only he could have started Clements Fluids and got it to where it was. But I also saw the impact that he had with people in the room being on the other side of that, right? I knew that he loved me so very much, but his tone and how he spoke to me would make me just bawl. And it took us a long, like we have a wonderful relationship and we've had a wonderful relationship, but helped me see like, even when you have the right intentions and you love someone, your delivery of that can make or break. He'd be like, why are you crying? And I'm like, but what you said, this is what I said. And I'm like, that's exactly right. And so we had a lot and like back and forth. And just the wonderful thing is that I knew my dad's heart and we were committed to working through it. And I think I even told the leadership team this recently. My dad just was in the fury of like running the business, right? Like you're just doing whatever it takes to get the job done. People should do what you say. I'm just like, we just got to do it. And until it was Chase and I on the other end of that phone call, it caused us to pause. It caused him to pause because I made him pause because I was like, I either was crying or I'd be like, wait, no, like you can't talk to him like that. Like, but it wasn't, it just was business, right? You didn't know anything different. That's just how you ran the business. So I think it forced me to really learn how to be self-aware because I saw what could happen when you aren't, and knowing how misinterpreted you can be was really scary to me. And so I think I forced myself to really try to be self-aware. Now I definitely have my own moments that my team will tell you I have not arrived. But it's a journey and it has to be intentional because intentions without the right action, it's just a dream, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I actually quoted that from Thomas Jefferson yesterday during a talk. The goal without a plan or execution is just hallucination.
Absolutely.
And I was like, I don't think we need any more hallucinations. Megan, I imagine there's plenty, it sounds like we would have plenty of funny stories and a few other rabbit holes to go down, and maybe we'll do that in a follow-up episode. But if people wanted to connect with you, maybe ask some questions and learn from you or learn more about what you're doing that's so unique over at Clements Fluids, where would you send them? How can they get a hold of you?
Yeah, a great place to start is our website. We've tried to really invest in what we're doing. We have a new sustainability page, and it talks a lot about our stewardship and sustainability and what that looks like here at Clements Fluids and why it matters. And then also we try to be really active on LinkedIn to helps us. I talked about our huddles, and we have rhythms that we do for both internal and external communication, but it's all about the heart of Clements Fluids, right? All what's going on within the culture and what we're trying to achieve. So I'd say LinkedIn and our website are probably the two best ways to follow and to because we're trying to really be transparent and letting people know what we're doing and how we're doing it.
I love that. And it's occurred to me that I've done this out of order, and this is the first one. I was just so carried away with the fun. But if somebody was listening and thinking, hey, the story resonates with me, I want to have that self-awareness. I want to lead in a way that's unique to me, but empathetic to others. And maybe they are also in a family business or situation. If they wanted to take a baby step in the next 24 hours, spending little to no money, how could they start to make progress towards becoming that more self-aware leader?
Yeah, so I am an assessment guru, and I know we've talked about the Enneagram, but I also really believe in Strength Finders. That was really impactful for me. I think that those two things, and also the Working Genius, just recently was introduced to that, got to hear Patrick Lenciani speak at a conference I was at a couple weeks ago and talked about meetings and frustration. Was so good. He's so good. But I think just starting with an assessment, even spiritual gifts tests, like anything like that, to just really recognize, I truly believe that your weaknesses can be your strengths overdone. And when you aren't aware of what your strengths really are, then it can come out as a weakness. So I don't think there's a whole lot that we can do to move the needle on our weaknesses themselves, like focusing on our weaknesses.
Right.
But when you focus on your strengths and you actually understand what your strengths overdone can look like, your weaknesses fix themselves. Not 100%, but I think it's a great place to start. I truly believe in coaching. I've always had a coach, and at some point I've had two or three, depending on where I was at in my life. I know, Kenny, you did not ask me to say this. This is a free plug, but I truly believe that everyone needs a coach and someone that can really help you. What you think sometimes is really happening versus someone being able to give you what really is happening and being there alongside you. And that is a neutral third party that really just wants to see you succeed and help you see yourself as you were created to be, has been transformational for me. So I'd say assessments, and then if you can, having some kind of coaching are the two things that I think are the needle movers.
Absolutely. And there are a lot of assessments that are either free or very low cost. The Working Genius being one of them. It's $25, which is something I really appreciate about how Patrick set that up to not be like an obstacle to figuring out how you're wired. So we have all your links. We have all these things. This has been a great conversation. I've really enjoyed it. So thank you so much, Megan, for spending some time with us and sharing your wisdom. And thank you to the listeners. Otherwise, Megan and I would just be having a really fun Wednesday, which is fine. But hopefully you hear that we both want to have an impact on other leaders who are in the world who are trying to come up, because we've benefited from these sorts of conversations ourselves.
Absolutely.
But please rate, review, subscribe, whatever the button of choice is on your platform. Leave a review, leave a comment, feedback. If you think that this is the worst thing you've ever heard, bring it. I'm an 8, so I love arguing. But I would love to hear about any topics you're interested in, what you need to know for the next step in your leadership journey, because I enjoy these. I'm going to keep doing these, but my goal is always to add value and help you take your next step. Leave that for me, and I'm happy to have any discussions around that. But until next time, change the way you think, you'll change the way you lead. We'll see you.